We're really excited to have our special guest today. Today, our guest is Jakson Powell. So, Jakson, I'm just going to kind of throw some stuff at you and let you kind of explain who you are, give us some background on you. So, what I'd like to hear is where you're from, what your favorite thing to do is, and then where you did serve your mission.
Oh, yeah. So, kind of like you said, my name is Jakson Powell. I'm from Southeast Texas, Southwest Louisiana area, out by Beaumont, Texas, kind of tucked away out in the woods, and it's a super, super beautiful area. I served my mission out in the Arizona Gilbert mission, so definitely different to get out of the woods and get out into the desert. So that was super fun, neat experience. And then other than that, um, big basketball fan. Love watching, love playing. Right now it's March Madness, so that's it's like heaven for me at the moment. So God's greatest gift is the atonement, and then His second greatest is March Madness. So
I love it. I love it. So I may know the answer to this, but I want to ask it just so our listeners know. Can you dunk it and get your elbow in the rim?
elbow, I'm not at the honey dip level, but I can dunk. I have actually gotten a couple texts and some church ball for throwing a dunk or two down.
That's awesome. Yeah, Jackson's a super athlete. I haven't been able to ball with him yet, but we're hoping to get that started here in a couple days. So, a couple things about Jakson from my side. So Jakson is actually an employee for Odeon right now. As I've talked about in the past, I'm the CEO of Odeon. Jackson's one of our sales associates. He does an awesome job, super personal. We always hear good feedback from everything Jakson does. So I knew he'd be a good one to start out with, somebody who can talk your ear off. Hopefully my ears stay on though. We can kind of go through it today. So, we're going to talk about a lot of the mission stuff. That's what this podcast is about. We want to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly of missions and how to prepare for them, advice that Jakson can give to us. So we're going to start off originally just kind of talking about what inspired Jakson. Jakson, what inspired you to go on a mission, and kind of tell us your mission story. Like what got you out?
Yeah, so I love the thought of what kind of got me out on the mission, and it's actually kind of what kept me going throughout the hard times of my mission. Um, Throughout high school, I really didn't want to go on a mission. I feel like in the back of my mind, a mission was kind of always, it's a thought process, but it never was like my goal. And I was I was getting ready to graduate high school. I had no clue what was going to happen with my life, and I decided that the best thing I could do was to go and try to join the military. I thought that was a good fun time. All my friends were doing it. Being from Southeast Texas, it's a very popular career route right out of high school. And so as I was getting ready, going through that process, and going meeting with recruiters, meeting with different branches of the military, the Marines, and with the Army, I was really kind of getting gung ho, dead set on doing that. And I realized the one thing that I loved about that thought was the discipline that it was helping me to prepare for. And I feel like that helped me a lot as I ended up actually deciding to go on a mission. But this was probably one of my biggest come to Jesus moments. I actually went down to the recruiter's office, and they were taking me down to MEPS. It's the Military Entrance Processing Station. And it's where you go, you get your MOS. It's your job basically with the military, and it's where you go and you decide to sign in, swear in, and do all of that. And on the ride down there, I had this experience where I'm sitting there, and everything kind of went dead silent. And I had my packet in my hand, and I was looking over everything. Yeah, I had the job picked out that I wanted. I had everything, the basic training that I was wanting to. I was going to be able to stay home for Christmas and then go out to basic training, and so I was kind of excited about that. But um, overall, I had this overwhelming experience where everything got quiet. Everything around me got super, super quiet. And I heard this super clear voice speak to me and say, "You have the wrong papers." And at the time, I was kind of upset and frustrated because I wasn't really active in any church. I'd bounced around from church to church and try and find my own religion, trying to find uh, my faith and what I believed in. And in that, it was just such an overwhelming experience. I knew it was the Holy Ghost telling me that I had the wrong papers. Of course, growing up with that mission in the back room of my mind, I kind of knew that that's what this voice was referring to. But at the same time, I wanted to deny it. I didn't want to go out on a mission. I thought that my plan was going to be better. And so I decided to keep going through with my steps. And as I continued to go through each step of preparing to go to the military, I started to feel so much remorse and regret and sorrow and sadness. And I felt as if not only was I like giving up on my life's plans, but the plans that God had not only for me but for multiple others people as well. And so I started meeting with my bishop and my stake president and got working on going on a mission instead. And I never actually signed anything or swore into the military, so it wasn't too difficult to get out of that one. But as I decided to enlist in the Lord's army and the army of Helaman, so to speak, I I started to feel so much happiness and joy and relief that I actually never had experienced before. And so that's a little bit of kind of like my story on why I decided to go out was I feel like I was like more so actually called by God to go serve a mission.
Awesome. That is an awesome story. That's cool that you kind of recognized and saw something that maybe you, even in the moment you didn't fully recognize it. You saw this opportunity. You maybe felt a prompting. You didn't maybe follow it the first time, but you followed it over time. And I think that's a life lesson that I think we all kind of learn over time, is that although we're gonna get prompted, and obviously we should try and follow the first one, the chances that we always follow the first one are pretty slim. So being able to kind of make sure that we're still trying to follow the second one, even if we kind of were a little too stubborn to follow the first one. So I love that. That's an awesome story. It's really cool that you got out there. So once you decided that you were going to go on a mission, what was the biggest like expectation or like excitement you had for the mission?
Oh, my biggest excitement was probably trying to like finding out where I was going to go. It wasn't very long of a process for me, thankfully. But I think that my biggest excitement was just finding out where I was going to go, and then diving in full head first. Like I said, I really enjoyed the thought process of being super disciplined, super, locked in with going into the military, and I liked that regimented type of an idea of way of living. And so I really liked that, and I knew that the mission was also going to be able to offer that for me. I was going to be able to learn self accountability. I was going to be able to learn and grow personally, but then also just to get out there and try to develop and grow as myself. And like I said, when I decided to serve a mission, I started to feel so much joy and peace that I had never felt before. And so I was excited to see, like, once I actually got set apart, everybody talks about, oh, once you're set apart, it's like this almost, they describe it as almost like this magical experience of where you become a completely different person. So I was excited for that, but then also excited to actually share what I was starting to learn and grow for myself. And I learned that I was gaining a testimony, and I was excited to go share that because it was something new that I actually had to offer.
Awesome. Those are awesome kind of goals and hopes for the mission. So let's go back to one of the things you said. I loved what you said in terms of the whole magic of once you get set apart, you feel different. Did that happen for you?
Yeah, actually, it did. I I I have a kind of like a neat experience where I got set apart twice. Partway through my mission, I broke my leg and had to go home, and they released me for a few months. And then when I went back out, I was able to get set apart. So not only was I able to experience it once, but twice. And I can say both times were just as magical, so to say. It's this very, very neat experience, and I truly do feel like it does set you apart from the world and kind of puts you in like this own little realm of not not being better than anybody, but you do get kind of lifted to a higher and holier plane of thought. But then also it helped me learn who I was as a person. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I think something you said that helped even me clarify, because I was going to kind of jump in and say that I don't know that I felt anything crazy, but as you kind of explained what it was like for you, it helped me realize that I think I experienced the same thing, but I didn't maybe categorize it the same way. I didn't like all of a sudden feel different, but I did have like a higher focus. Like I could feel my train of thought changed. Like it was like, okay, it's missionary time, let's go. So it wasn't like this like, oh my goodness, this huge like overwhelming feeling. But I totally, now that you say that and like say it out loud, I can see it in myself that it was like, yeah, it was go time. It's the time that you get set apart. It's time to move forward and go share the
Oh
gospel.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. No, I
Israel.
saw this YouTube video or whatever saying that humans only use 10% of their brain. I don't know how true that might be, But I feel like when I got set apart, I unlocked the 11th%, and so it's kind of sweet.
Man, I need that 11th% because I don't know that I ever unlocked that. Hopefully, I can get my 11th and 12th% going. So
Oh, no kidding.
that's awesome. Okay, so you served in Arizona. Let's
Mhm.
kind of talk about some of the things inside the mission. So let's talk about an experience that significantly impacted your understanding of a new culture. And I recognize you to serve stateside. It's not like you went to some crazy culture. I know the last 2 episodes we had, I talked about my mission in Mexico and Jordan and Indonesia, where you were going stateside. I still believe that from Texas to Arizona, there was a difference in culture, and you had to learn things. And whether it was culture of like a totally different place and their culture, but even just the mission culture is different. So you kind of have to learn how to adjust to
Absolutely.
that culture. So I'd love to hear kind of how the culture impacted you when you first got there.
Yeah, no, I think it was a huge little shock. I grew up on 68 acres out in the middle of nowhere in Texas, out near Beaumont, that Louisiana border. And so growing up like that, life is kind of slow, life is kind of fun. It's something that I really enjoy. But then getting to Arizona, Gilbert especially, big metropolitan area, I learned a new curse word on my mission the first week. It's called a HOA. That was a brand new thing to me, and so it was kind of fun to see just like how people can live so close to each other and not even know each other at all. When I live like, I don't know, a quarter mile, half mile from my closest neighbor, and we're best friends. I know his whole family and all that. And so it was kind of a culture shock to see that, oh, these whole neighborhoods don't even know each other. But then also to see that like a 20-minute drive was quite literally halfway across my mission. Gilbert is one of the smallest missions in the entire world, and so it was just kind of a culture shock to see that the church is a lot bigger in Gilbert. My stake is 3 times the size of my mission. My home stake is, and so it's just kind of an interesting
That's great.
experience
You're
to
talking area
see.
landmass wise, right? Like
Yeah,
the
landmass wise.
landmass size is 3 times the size of your whole mission. That's crazy.
Yeah, you could drive 4 hours in my home stake in the Orange, Texas stake. You could drive about 4 hours around and still be in the stake, and you could drive. Well, you can bike my mission in about 3.5 hours. It's been done before multiple times.
That's crazy. See,
Yeah,
that's
it's called the
that's
Tour
kind
de
of how
Gilbert.
that's kind of how mine is. And I'm from Utah, so I'm not I have a lot higher concentration than Texas does. But still, like even in I grew up in small town, as we've talked on this podcast a couple times, where it was the same thing. Like from end to end of my stake was like 45 to an hour driving. But in my mission, like there was some extreme like places, but any stake down there in Monterey, it was kind of the same experience where like my closest neighbor was like 500-600 yards away, and in Monterey, like there's in that same area that we lived on, there was like 300 people that lived there. It was like just this like crazy type of thing where it was just a totally different culture, and it wasn't just the actual culture, but the difference in just the styles of life.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, so talking about that, some of the different cultures. Let's walk through maybe like we kind of talked about like this a little bit, but let's talk about like your first week in the mission. Like you get in the field, not the MTC, but you get to the field. What does it look like? What are the eye opening things that happen?
No grass. No grass is huge. If you've been to Gilbert, you know they do this beautiful thing called hardscaping. They throw 1 trillion rocks into the yard and they call it art, and they just call it good. They don't have to water anything. Gilbert is like 30 minutes south of Phoenix, and so just right next to Mesa. So it's just super super hot, brutal all the time. But then other than that, it's just kind of it was kind of fun to be in there and have to learn what it was like to be a missionary. There's a lot of mission rules that people talk about. And I feel like that first, not just the first week, but I mean, that first week especially, I was so hyper fixated on following every single rule that I needed to with exactness that I overlooked a lot of things, such as, you know, ministering to the one person specifically, or to, really take the time to notice what others were doing and feeling and helping them out. I was so focused on a piece of paper that I didn't care as much as I should have about the people than I did the paper.
I think that's really good advice. we've actually broached this subject already on the podcast a couple of times. Just the idea of, I think a lot of times, and I was definitely thought this way for the other people, that there was not enough obedience on the mission, and I actually still think that's true. I think there's a lot of disobedience happening on missions that you don't expect when you get there. You're like, holy cow, I thought missionaries were perfect.
That's an eye opener. That's a shocker.
But I do think sometimes there's the other extreme, and I feel like more people than I wanted to admit have the other extreme where they come in wanting to be so obedient that sometimes they forget about the actual love of Jesus Christ. And not that you have to be disobedient to have love of Jesus Christ. That's not what we're saying, but just kind of the focus where your heart is on the whole thing. So that's I like that we kind of brought that up again. So so taking that, let's just talk about like how it happened for you. Like, when did you get your companion? Who was your companion? You don't have to like say names or anything, but like, what was it like? What was your first experience with your companion? Hopefully your companion doesn't get mad if you start bashing on him, because I know that for most people, first companions, you realize afterwards that your first companion was better than you thought when you had him. So
No, I loved my first companion. He was so awesome. I got picked up at the airport and took straight to the mission office. The mission home is kind of small and wasn't able to house everybody, and so we went straight to the mission office. It's very localized. It's literally right across the street from the airport, and so kind of easy, convenient that way. I met my trainer first day. I literally left. I left in a weird time, so I actually didn't ever go to the Provo MTC. I went to the at-home MTC for all 3 weeks. So I woke up in my bed in Houston and caught a flight, went straight to Arizona, landed in Phoenix, took the little walk across down to the mission office, and from there it was kind of fun. I walked into the chapel, and that's where President was going to put everybody together. And I saw my trainer, and he was in a trio at the time. He his companion took off to England. Weird timing, and not just my mission, but all missions in the world at the time. End of 2020, beginning of 2021, kind of weird timing, and so I got put with him, and he was like literally all I knew. We went to the area that night. My first night, I literally hugged my mom goodbye in the morning, and then was shaking hands with members, eating dinner with them that night, and it was just such a neat experience. But he was quite literally a life changer. He helped me over that time learn to understand the people and feel that love for the people while maintaining a high level of obedience and high level of self-expectation for myself and for my future companions and for the rest of my mission. He really set the tone very, very well. And I knew that in the moment. And so I was very, very blessed to be able to appreciate that and cherish that while I was with him. And although we only lasted a transfer, he quite literally changed the shape and the outcourse of my entire mission.
So I'm just going to say this right here. All of you listening, if you're preparing to go on a mission, be more like Jakson and less like me. So I definitely, I thought I was coming in with a good heart into some of those, but I definitely realized as I got in like my companion, I had some hard times with my companion. And honestly, like I look back now, and even after like a couple transfers after, I like went back to him and was like, dude, you were amazing. But in the moment, like all I could do was find all the nitpicky things and be annoyed about this or annoyed about that. And like, well, I had two trainers. It sounds like you might have had the same thing where you had one transfer and then another transfer, and both of them were awesome. But I kind of was nitpicky with both of them until I kind of got out and had to do my own thing and to be my own team companion and trainer. And so be more like Jakson, everybody. Come in with a good heart, ready to learn and realize how amazing your first companion actually probably is, because he's better than you think he is. If you're more like me, he's better than you think he is. And if you're like Jakson, then you probably are at least appreciating it more than I did. So be more like
I don't know, because I definitely love my first companion, and I loved all my companions now looking back on it and being able to talk about it. You're totally right. You get in there and you it happens transfer to transfer, whether it's your first transfer, your 16th transfer. I mean, there's 17 in an elder's mission, and so you go throughout the whole thing, and there's some companions that you absolutely love from the get go, and there's others that you learn to love them over time, and I feel like I was unfair to a lot of my later companions, because I would compare them to my first, and I was like, oh, but they didn't do this the way that Elder Edwards did, or one thing or another, and I was like, ah, man. But I definitely learned to appreciate each of them for who they were after the fact. And are there Are there times where you're going to get along with them great? Absolutely not. But there's also times that you're going to absolutely love them and that
Yeah.
you're going to be, best buds. And so, but yeah, no, I was blessed with the first, and then I had to learn to be more like Jesus, I guess, at the end of the day, throughout the rest of my mission.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad you're still human, because I was feeling pretty human like, but that's awesome. You mentioned a couple things in there. So the first one we need to unpack is COVID. So you started
Yeah,
your mission during the heart of COVID. Obviously, it was kind of not the heart of like when it started, but like it was still full in effect right there. They were still not sending missionaries very far away. They were mostly going stateside. Let's talk about kind of
yeah.
what your mission looked like, at least the first few months of your mission, and how it changed over the course of your mission with the COVID restrictions, and how hard that was for you, or how easy it was for you, whatever
Yeah.
kind of what the experience was like.
No, yeah. I think when I first got to the mission, not to give myself a pat on the back for any reason, it was not my control at all. But I was considered a rare breed, so to say. I was one of the very few that actually had a call to my own mission, and that I was actually staying in Gilbert. We had about 280 missionaries when I first got there, and out of the 280 of them, I think there was like 150 that were waiting to go somewhere else.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, so it was kind of crazy. We had people literally waiting to go all around the world. Many of them got to actually go to where they wanted to and where they were supposed to, but then there's a lot that actually never got to go where they were originally called, and so they got to spend the 2 years in the 118 biking around in Arizona with me, and so that was kind of fun. But I feel like it was an interesting time. There was houses of missionaries, their apartments that usually are only supposed to hold maybe two companionships. They were instead holding three and four, and in one case five companionships, and that was kind of crazy. And luckily that was all elders, because I wouldn't be able to imagine sharing a bathroom with 8 sisters or whatever. That'd be kind of hectic getting ready in the mornings, but just kind of fun stuff. You got to see and hear a whole lot of things, and you got to learn a lot about different cultures as you were talking to the missionaries. There was a lot of missionaries that had originally served in, say, like the Philippines or in Thailand or in Mongolia. There's a lot of people that had served in other countries and then came back out after the COVID restrictions had started to lift up a little bit and allowed them to at least serve stateside. And so that was cool to even see and hear some of the stories of maybe even South Africa and how that was had impacted their beginning of their missions, and to get advice to start off mine as well.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit of that. I hadn't even thought of that, of being able to kind of talk and learn from people who served in different places, and then what they were experienced there. Because like I always like wonder, as somebody who served in Mexico, what would mission life actually be like somewhere else? Because like when I think of a mission, I think of it the way I experienced my mission. But
Yeah.
a lot of these kids got to go to one place and then to another place, and they got to kind of experience two different mission lives.
Hmm.
So like what did you learn from some of them? What are maybe if you can remember a lesson or two that you learned from them and you took forward towards your mission?
Yeah, no, I think one of the big ones was an elder that served in Japan, who I got to talk to a lot with. And then later I ended up serving with a different elder that was from Japan. And the two of them combined really taught me a whole lot. Absolutely loved them so much. And they taught me a lot of just what it means to be grateful, and how, and I know Japan's a first world country, but they are just some of the most gracious people ever. They're so grateful for everything that they have, and that just taught me so much about, like, man, I'm from a good family, a good town, down in Southeast Texas, and first world country, and I'm from America. Life is pretty good, and seeing them go off to another first world country and just realize how grateful they were for everything that we had. I mean, you hear stories of people go to like Brazil or go to all these other like second, third world countries, and come back just so grateful for everything that they have here in America. But it was like really neat for me to see people who were from first world countries serving in first world countries that were just so grateful for everything. And that really helped me a lot, because Gilbert is a very affluent area. It's a very it's not an area where people struggle too much. And I mean, there are definitely people that do struggle, but it was just very cool for me to see that no matter how much you do or do not have, you can always still be grateful for everything.
Awesome. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of really positive things, and I love that. I think it's good. I've mentioned one of the things of this podcast though is I want to be able to talk about some of the hard. It's like I love the good, and I think we all need to know the good because it gets us excited. It inspires us. but it's hard. At least it was hard for me and everybody that I've talked
Oh
to.
yeah.
And I want to hear what were maybe give us the hardest thing, and if you can do two, if there's something like the two types of things you want to talk about, but the hardest thing you faced and how it changed you.
Oh, I think the hardest thing I faced was actually serving a mission. It's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. I do think we do sugarcoat it a lot. We make it sound like this glamorous. You go out and you just have an amazing time the whole time, and you're just like on this spiritual high the entire time. But some of my most difficult days and weeks of my entire life have been on my mission, and there's been so many times where I was looking, I was looking inward when I should have been looking outward to others. And I was looking in, and I was just thinking, how upset and frustrated I was, and why is nobody wanting to talk? Why is nobody wanting to hear this message about Jesus Christ? He's here to liberate us and to help us to be free from our spiritual sins and from our spiritual endeavors that we put ourselves through, or even that we don't put ourselves through, that just happen naturally throughout the course of our lives. But I'm supposed to be sharing this message. Nobody wants to hear it. But I also have this message of peace and hope and love, and from an omnipotent being who knows every single flaw of my life, but yet regardless loves me. And I have this beautiful thing, and yet I'm struggling even that for myself to feel that. And so no wonder nobody wants to hear it from me as well. And so there was just so many things that with mixtures of pride and thinking that, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that, or if, oh, well, if this missionary just got a baptism, then I surely should be able to get a baptism, but I'm not even teaching anybody. And so there's a lot of comparison and a lot of pride and a lot of just day-to-day challenges. You're working a 16 to 18 hour day. You're only asleep for 10 hours. And so not even 10 hours. What am I saying? You're only asleep for 8 hours. I
Yep.
wish you were asleep for 10. But 10:30 to 6:30, that's your go to sleep time. But from 6:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night, it's pretty much go, go, go. And so there's a lot of physical demands as well as spiritual demands. And then just like the mental, emotional of comparing yourself and comparing just what your expectations for the mission would have been compared to what the realities of them are. There's a lot of walking around, and there's a lot of days and weeks on end of walking around, knocking doors, talking to every single person you can, and nobody wanting to talk to you. And so there's a lot of times where even though you're with a companion 24/7, and although you are making visits and you are seeing people, and I'm surrounded. I'm in Gilbert, Arizona. It's a big, huge city, and it's a lot of people all around, but you just still kind of feel lonely. And there's a lot of struggles to it, but I think just kind of turning back to Jesus and realizing that he walked that lonely road, and you're not just walking it alone, kind of helped out a little bit with that. But and then I guess also realizing why I started my mission, not just that I signed up for a flag football team, but that I feel like I truly do believe that I was called of God to serve a mission, not just that I had this desire, but then overall got to it. We can get back to that real quick.
Yep. Yep. We'll just wait.
Odion Mentor Riverton.
Okay, so some of those challenges, there's something you said inside those challenges that really, really resonated with me. There's obviously a ton of comparison that happens within the other people and the other missionaries serving. Like you'll have times like, oh, well, this missionary was in the MTC with me, and I felt like we taught similar, but I am not baptizing as much as him, and you can have that. But I feel like the thing that resonated most with me was that I compared myself to myself. I was self-competitive very much. And so I had these expectations of what I was going to do on my mission. And when it wasn't happening, it was really hard. Like, even if I like look back and say, like, I should have reset expectations, like I just hoped for more. Like you said, I had this message that I wanted to share with every fiber of me, but I couldn't, nobody wanted it, or very few people wanted it. Way less people than I thought were going to wanted it. You read some of these things, and I think that's something that I'd love to make a little interjection here with the scriptures. Is a lot of times when we look at scriptures and stories, we're looking at thousands of years of history, and it's the highlight reel. We're not noticing the timeouts that are happening and the game planning that's happening and if we're going to take football analogy, just because I'm a football guy, like how many run plays aren't getting touchdowns? Like all we're seeing is the touchdowns in the scriptures, but we're not seeing all the other things. And so sometimes we compare our life to the touchdowns. But we don't realize that we are going to have our touchdowns. You have to drive down the field to get the touchdowns. Every once in a while you get an 80-yard touchdown, but it doesn't happen that often. And I think
No,
that's something
absolutely.
that we don't realize sometimes is we compare ourselves and why aren't miracles happening like they were in this time or what? It's because we're only seeing the good of that situation, just like Instagram. We're only seeing the good of it, but we need to compare ourselves and recognize that it takes time.
No, absolutely. And I played sports in high school as well growing up, and I played some track and some football in Southeast Texas. It gets really competitive, and so of course there's that team comparison of where you're looking at it as a group, but then also that track is that one-on-one comparison. For those run plays, my school ran a power I, so I can attest. There's a ton of run plays that don't end up in anything, but then there's a lot that do end up in those touchdowns, and when those do come, it's super great. But I feel like track is where it kind of got to me and was able to compare myself to myself, and then what kind of built that mindset, right, of trying to be better each and every day. And I feel like it's coming from a good place. It's coming from a good place of wanting to be better, wanting to grow, and of course that's why God put us here on earth, so that we can grow and develop both physically, spiritually, mentally, all of the great things. But then I feel like too much of a good thing can become a bad thing, and so wanting to become better and everything, that's a good righteous desire, but then also taking that one step too far and taking that to a prideful level of, oh man, this isn't why I came out to baptize. I didn't come out to knock doors, or oh man, I didn't come out to get yelled at. I came out to baptize. I have authority from Jesus. Why aren't they listening to me, right? I feel like and those are justified thoughts. We've all had them. You go out there and everybody has them, and it's understandable. And so from those self-comparisons to self-reflections are two completely different things. One's good and one's bad. One's from Jesus Christ trying to help us to reflect and grow and learn, and then one's comparing, and that's ultimately what we don't want to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think something I love that you talked about is like the Jesus side, like making sure we're focused on Jesus. Because like Jesus struggled. I mean, who felt more pain and went through more anguish and more rejection and more beating than Jesus? Nobody, right? And so
Right.
like, but sometimes it's hard for us to see that. Like we're gonna go through it a little bit. I know there's an Elder Holland quote that basically says like you're gonna get all these hard things on your mission, and you're finally gonna understand a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a tenth of a percent what Jesus went through. And it's like to be able to bear his name, sometimes you're gonna have to go through some suffering that he suffered, and it kind of opened my eyes to like, okay, it's okay that I'm struggling. It's okay that I'm not always successful. Like my job, yes, and like I said, I think it's super important to realize we're not saying that wanting to be better is a bad thing. Like we don't get anybody wrong on that. That is not the point of this. But there, like you said, any too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, and if we're taking it too far to an extreme, it becomes obsessive and depressing, then that is where it's too far. And so it should be something that's reflective, like you said, and helping us become better, but not something that tears us down more and more. So I love that. Okay, so on those challenges, I want to hear. I love those challenges. I do think that was the least, from everything I've talked to people, those are kind of the hardest challenges right there. But you did have another challenge. You you hurt your leg. I can't remember if it was broken, and then you had to come home and go back out. Let's talk about that challenge. What that was like for you to come back and then go back out.
No, yeah, I think this definitely is a huge challenge that anybody doesn't want to face. But to me, this actually became one of the biggest blessings of my entire life. As odd as that might sound, I was sitting there doing anything that a normal elder should be doing on P Day, playing basketball, right? Just the best thing to do on a P Day, just get some energy out. And apparently, I got too much energy out, and I got my ankle taken out. I sprained. I took out all the tendons and ligaments in my ankle, but then I also had a spiral stress fracture up my left tibia, and I was unable to walk. I was in excruciating pain, and so I landed on somebody else's foot and just completely had it taken out. Not quite Paul George level, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah. So what happened after that? Like, what was the process of like? How long until you went home, and then what was it like coming back out?
Yeah, no. So I feel like I'm a little atypical with this going home and coming back out process. I went. I immediately called the mission nurse and the mission president's wife, Sister Wright. She's just the best, absolute best. She's the president's wife, and she's just so sweet. And I remember I was in so much pain, and the mission nurse wasn't answering. Shout out to Sister Payne, no pun intended, but absolutely love her to death. And But I was like, hey, call Sister Wright. Her voice was soothing. I need it. I need to talk to like a mom figure at the moment, and she was more like a grandma figure, and so I absolutely loved her to death. Uh, we got talking to some General 70s, and they wanted me to catch a plane home. This was the P Day, so for those listening, it's the Monday, right before the April General Conference session of 2022. And so I was getting ready. I was almost 11 months in, 11 and a half, and I was just getting excited for General Conference, and I got a little too excited and ended up breaking my leg on P Day. We talked to these 70s. They wanted me home before conference, but I wanted to experience conference as a missionary again. I feel like it's such a unique experience. It's such a powerful experience, and so they were willing to let me wait 1 week. Um, but then I wanted to. They gave me an inch, and I was going for a mile. Right, I didn't want to go home because between going to MEPS and not wanting to go on a mission at all, I was doing that whole military entrance processing stuff. Um, to now, I'd grown and developed so much as a person, and spiritually and physically and just emotionally. I came to actually care about people and understand people in a way I never thought that I could. And so I'd grown so much, and I didn't want to go home. It was such a powerful draw to want to stay out that I was willing to, sit in a wheelchair and do whatever I needed to, or do crutches, knee scooters, all the above. I just wanted to stay a missionary. And so they gave me an inch. I went for a mile, and I don't know which one it was, unfortunately, but one of the brethren, one of the apostles, called my mission president after a week and 2 days. So it was Wednesday of the following week, and they said, "Hey, he's hopping on a plane tomorrow. Get him home." And so my mission president calls and he says, "Hey, if it's a 70," and I don't know if how we feel about this quote, but he says, "Hey, if it's a 70, we'll talk to him about it, but you can't argue with an apostle." And I agree. You can't ever argue with an apostle. Arguing with 70s, that's probably not advised either. Um, but we definitely let them know how we wanted me to stay out, and ultimately the Lord needed me to go home. And this was where the true blessing started to happen. I got home, and I was told it's going to be a 9-month process. It's going to be like a good little 9-month process to be able to rehabilitate my leg and get back to walking around and be functionable to be fit to serve a mission. There's a lot of walking and biking, and you can't really do that on a bum leg. And so I was told it's going to be a 9-month process, and instead it only became a 3-month process. I quite literally got healed overnight. And it was such a miraculous event that it was so huge to me and growing my testimony. My mission president was going home in July, and I wanted so badly to be there with him again. I guess it was in June, because that's when the transfer
Yeah.
happens. And so I wanted so badly to have him as my mission president again, and he gave me a blessing that told me that he would be my president again. And I got home, and my stake president gave me a priesthood blessing and promised me that I would be able to walk. It was kind of a weird phrasing, but he told me I'd walk under the sight of President Wright again. And I thought, wow, that's so odd. Odd phrasing, right? I'm home for the next 9 months. He's home before I go back, but it ended up coming to pass. And in that time, I was able to go out, and this has really built my testimony and helped me a lot, because I knew that there was people that I was praying for back home that I was worried about, and I was struggling to understand why they were in the situations that they were. And being that I was able to go home and kind of still be in missionary mode, um, I don't know if it's anything that I did, or I give credit to Jesus Christ for orchestrating the whole thing and using me as an instrument. But he got me home, and now I've got 3 friends that never were really planning on going out, but now they're serving missions, and they'll be out for the next 18 more months and whatnot. My best friend after my mission, my best friend in the world, Elder Hatton, he's actually out right now. But his farewell talk was when I gave my homecoming talk the second time, the final time. And so that was just such a unique experience, and just what a blessing to see that 3 or 4 days after I got released from my mission the final time was when he actually got set apart. And so that was just so cool. And I don't know if it was anything that I said or did, but I do know that Jesus helped us both along in that time.
That's awesome. So you did go back out when your mission president, your original mission president, was still there. Is that correct?
Yeah, for his last 4 days of his mission,
That's
I was
crazy.
out.
And then how long did you serve after that? Did you do the full 13 months left, or did you take the time that you were rehabbing as mission time?
So I ended up taking that time of rehabbing as mission time.
Okay,
I wanted to go back home and do FSY, and I think that that's a very blessed and sacred program. I'm excited to be doing that again, and love the FSY program. But I felt like I needed to go home at that time, and ultimately, it for me it became the right decision to make.
that's awesome. So what was it like coming back out the second time? Like once you get back, like what did that like entail? Like was it like, man, all this like coming home, did you kind of go back to normal life, or were you kind of like still like trying to live missionary life? And then once you got back out, what was it like readjusting after you knew the expectations, you had been home and then you were going back out?
Yeah, no, I got home and I tried my best to live mission life the best I could. And after being home for probably 24 hours and trying not to be on social media or anything and trying to just sit around the house doing nothing, I realized that I needed to do something. So I have three little sisters. I had to start watching Disney princess movies with them, and definitely got on Instagram and got to catch up with some of my friends and say
Yeah,
hi and whatnot. And definitely went out and hung out with some of my friends as I could, and and it was a fun time. I definitely had like a little bit of a hybrid life because I was trying so much to stay focused on the mission. I was still reading Preach My Gospel like every day, and still reading my scriptures every day like we should, and I was super grateful for that because it made transitioning back a little bit easier. But then and there was like some small rules that I was keeping that they were kind of goofy, like approving text messages. Hey mom, this girl just texted me. Can I respond? Can I reply with this? And she's like, I don't want to know what you're replying with. And no, that's cringy. You don't know how to talk to females. And I'm like, that's fair. But um, it's kind of fun. It was a fun little hybrid life. But going back out, I thought, man, I served a mission for 11 and a half months. I was only home for 3 months. I stayed hanging out with the missionaries all the time. I was teaching lessons, and we had a couple baptisms. The elders in my home ward did, and so I was like, man, I still felt like I was involved. I still felt like I was doing the best I could to be a missionary, and so I was like, man, I'm still around the work. But I got back out there, and man, I felt like a greenie again. I felt like I was just starting. I felt like I knew what to do, but I didn't know how to do it. It was kind of like if you don't play basketball for like a year and then you go back to start shooting free throws, you're like, oh wow, this is bad, But it
yeah,
felt right, but it felt wrong. It's like it's kind of like that weird limbo mode of, hold on, am I supposed to be doing this? I know how to do this, but I don't know how to do it.
yeah. No, that's cool. I've never actually ever asked that question to somebody who had come home and went back out. So that's interesting to kind of
Yeah.
see it. I can see kind of that same basketball or golf or any of those sports that maybe
Or even like
require.
driving a new car, it's
Yeah,
like driving a new car. You hit the brakes a little bit and you're like, oh, whoa, I stopped a little too hard. Or like, oh,
yep,
that accelerator is a little nicer than
yep,
my car. But
yep. No, I love that. That's a good analogy right there. So, okay, so these are some awesome things we've talked about. The last thing I want to really kind of go over and ask you is, what is the one piece of advice you would give a missionary, and you maybe do give missionaries inside the store when they come in, for what you would advise them to do on their mission?
oh, I think that's a great question. I don't feel like there's any advice that's like the one size fits all. There was a piece of advice that was given to me that was my stake president told me. He said, Jackson, your mission is like an internship with the Savior, and that really hit. That really hit me a lot. Thinking that your mission is like an internship with the Lord. Um, you think about it, you're going out, you're not making money, you're not doing anything, you're putting forth your best effort, and at the end of the day, you just hope and pray that your boss, so to speak, takes your efforts and values them, and at the end of your mission, he definitely does. I know that the Lord loves effort. Russell M. Nelson and all of our apostles has been talking about how the Lord loves effort. He values whatever we're willing to give. The widow's mite is a huge story that sits in a lot of our hearts for a good reason. Whatever effort we're able and willing to give him is more than treasured to him. But also just knowing that, kind of like what we've talked about before, the rules are important. The rules are so important. They're there to keep you safe. They're there to keep you protected. They're there to help you and to challenge you, kind of like the commandments. The commandments are important They keep you protected. They keep you safe. Sometimes they may not make sense, and sometimes they may make complete sense. Don't murder, right? But I feel like no matter what, the rules are important, but so are the people. And understanding where the people are at, and coming to know them and appreciate them, value them for the effort that they're giving is huge. And just being able to value that and understand that. I feel like you kind of come to learn what we're talking about and learn how to do that as you get out into the mission field. But valuing the people over the paper. Still respect the rules. The rules are important. Be obedient. We're not saying don't be obedient, or don't be, yeah, we're not saying be disobedient just because you want to seem cool or seem fun around certain people in the mission, but definitely value those relationships that come, and take it seriously, but don't take it too seriously, right? The Lord wants us to have fun. Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy. And if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong, I think.
I love that. And I love the Lord loves effort. I think that's a huge lesson that I think is great for every missionary. It's all going to be different. Like you said, everybody's going to have different challenges, but as long as you're trying your hardest, that's the most important part. And you're just giving everything you've
Absolutely.
got.
And even through those challenges, I think they've got my favorite scripture is Moroni 7:33. And Christ hath said, if you'll have faith in me, you'll have power to do whatsoever things expedient in me. And the Lord wants you to succeed. He wants you to get through your mission. And yes, there's some of the most challenging times of your life you're going to experience, but just continue to have faith, and he'll give you the power to get through that.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing advice, and I hope all of you listeners can take that. Those of you that maybe have already served, we're doing the same thing. Hopefully, we're all doing the same thing in life. But those who are planning on serving, I hope you take those things Jakson said and kind of really, really remember them. Like Jakson said, you may think that you're prepared to do that, and you're gonna love the people and you're gonna work it hard, and then you get out there and you relearn it again because you realize it was a little different than you expected. But take what Jakson said and run with it. Like getting behind that and working hard and doing everything you can is the most important of what the Lord wants. He wants effort. So thanks everybody. Have a good day.